Just come on up, state your name and address for the record.
Mary Young, 58 Pond Street, and I do have copies of my remarks and questions if you'd like to have them. I'm going to ask your indulgence for a minute, just 1 minute really, to recap why I'm here and then get into some questions. It was about 6 months ago at your October 2017 town council meeting that Jasmine Conklin, president of the Lions Club, rang an alarm bell about the circumstances at the animal shelter that resonated with me. And I included in the packet a letter to the editor by me dated 10/10/17. And I've learned a lot since then. In early November, volunteers were summarily dismissed from their service at the shelter with no explanation but plenty of unfounded innuendo. At your meeting in January, I raised a number of questions and provided you with copies of those and my remarks. Thereafter, I submitted 3 requests for public information, which included those and other financial questions. The only response I got was that all inquiries regarding the shelter were referred to the town solicitor. It was only when I appealed the refusal by default to the town manager and suggested that we move on to the Attorney General's office that I was able to secure a meeting with Mr. Zielinski and Finance Director Kristen Benoit. Ms. Benoit produced very good documents that cleared up some inaccurate information given at the January meeting. Most notable was the fact that a donation from Belize Subaru of $9,185 was deposited in a special dog pound account on May 13th, 2015. On the sheet that I enclosed, which was just a cover sheet from Ms. Benoit entitled General Fund Accounts, the balance of the account was, which is not on that page but on backup, was $15,964 as of June 30th, 17. Since the dismissal of the volunteers, that fund has been being used for laundry and veterinary care for the animals, previously paid for by West Warwick Angels Caring for Animals. As of 1/31/18, the balance was $14,037.87, $1,836.72 having been expended. More than 2 months have passed since then. Meanwhile, two more dogs have been hurt and treated for injuries sustained because of defective fencing. What will it take to get the fencing repaired immediately? Please don't refer me somewhere else. It is my understanding that it has gone out to bid 3 times in recent years without remediation. I believe President Goslin commented in October's press that emergencies would be dealt with, and this is one. On to my questions.
Mrs. Young, before you go on to your questions, you are absolutely right. In that council meeting, when the fence was brought up to our attention, I know Councilman Messier and myself were talking about it, and we said to get that fence fixed immediately. And so I'm not sure if it's been fixed as of today, but it should be fixed, and I don't know why it isn't.
Well, I'm not sure which. There was one fence that that a local business did repair.
Right.
This is a different fence.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
They're interior and exterior fences. Interior fences need a lot of work.
So the fence that we were talking about back then has been fixed?
If there was 2 fences, there was one particular fence that a friend of mine specifically called up, and he repaired the fence for them. Like, I mean, it was like the next day.
Right.
I'm not sure which fence specifically you're talking about, but there was one fence that was repaired. If there's another one, then I'm not sure about. There was one that was interior inside one of the cages. That's the one that was fixed that next day. It was inside one of the kennels.
Right.
Not on the, I don't know about the outside. This,
Yeah,
this is on the inside where one of them was like, it was torn.
Right.
And I know that he like came out there with his guys and fixed it that
And
day.
that's a continuing problem. Okay, thank you. Ms.
And
Benoit,
just to clarify, they volunteered, this
Yes.
business volunteered, they didn't cost the town or anybody
I remember
anything.
reading that in the paper, and I was very proud for that individual. On that page that I gave you, Ms. Benoit reported revenues and expenses attributed to various shelter accounts. The revenue account, dog pound fees and fines, and this includes turn-in fees, adoption fees, fines, and impound fees. First question I have is, I still don't understand why these revenues were not budgeted for the current 2018 budget, nor are they in the 2019 budget. Surely there's some history that suggests how much revenue can be anticipated from these fines and fees. I'm wondering if anybody can answer that.
Marion, the budget item for the fines and fees from dog pound, where does that go?
Fines and fees, it doesn't go into town clerk. Only dog licensing goes to town clerk. I'm gonna guess it's deposited through the dog pound to finance.
There's a line, there's a revenue line in general fund, that's animal shelter. revenue.
So it's in the budget under revenues, under,
There's no budget, there was no budgeted amount in 18, I don't know if it was because it's trended low in the past, or if it's unexpected, like there's unpredictable collections with that.
Yep.
I think it's still about $2,700.
Al?
In the recent review of the code, and talking with Chief McGarrett, one of the items you're gonna see tonight is the removal of dog licenses from the police department, the town clerk's office, and I dealt with Chief McGarrett and Marie, that all other dog pound, all those other types of fees related to animals go, I don't know how, but they go over to the police department in there, and Marie, the chief secretary, is the one who.
But again, that should show up under revenue somewhere in
I
here.
don't know about the budget, I'm just saying, what I know where they go.
Should be under general revenue, because we put all revenues under general revenue.
Yes.
There's
What page is
a line
revenue?
item on page 6, which Kristen referred to, animal shelter
Six.
collections. And it's blank for 2018 and blank for recommendations for 2019. But, you know, animals are adopted, they are turned in, there are fines, there are impound fees annually.
Find it.
Yeah, I found it. She is right, it's zero. It's at zero. So we don't plan on making any revenue from fines or anything?
You know, I think in the past, it just wasn't predictable amount of money, it was small, so there was no budget. We can budget 3,000 and try and, I mean, I don't even think anything was being recorded until October. Something started to be recorded.
So if it's not recorded, where does the money go? Because,
General fund.
so we don't know how much came in.
We know how much came in now.
But before,
But you don't have any,
before that point, how did we know?
Before that, there may have not been any turn-ins, there may not have been any impounds of animals. The
No, they
beginning
happen every year.
Yeah, the beginning of the year, maybe, I'm just saying like July, August, there were no revenues in July and August, and then it seemed like in October, when the receipts came over from the different departments, there were revenues now for that line item, so. I don't know if maybe they were going into the other, the animal shelter fund, the other fund, but,
So we're tracking this now, and we'll have an idea for next year's budget?
yeah, I mean, I think probably 3,000 might be a safe number. At this point, we're at 2,700, and we have 3 months left, I looked at it today.
All right.
At your January meeting, it was stated that licensing fees, which I estimate to be at about a minimum of $8,190 by calculating approximately 1,170 dogs licensed at $7 per spay-neutered dog, goes into the general fund. Should I assume that's the town's general fund or the shelter's general fund? Because it's not included in
There's no shelter.
the shelters, which is the
Shelter don't have a
police
fund.
department.
The dog licenses? Yeah, they go into general fund under town clerk.
Oh, licenses. President Gosling, can I just say, that I get a report from Jessica in the police station every month to balance municipal court, and I think.
Just move your mic.
And I think that there is a column that's dogs. So things that come in through the police station are deposited. I could go check that if you want. But I believe that I only use her municipal court, because that's what I balance. But there's like 4 other columns, and I think one of them is dog, if I remember correctly.
How about the question number 2 here with the $7 per spade? So much goes to the state, so much goes to the town?
No, none goes to the state.
None goes to the state?
No,
Now, where does that money go? Into the general fund?
yes.
And really not used for what it's intended to be used for, or what's it?
Well, dog licensing is separated, and I
Yeah.
don't know if it's supposed to be in a specific fund or not. We put it in, there's a report that gets broken down every single day, and dog licensing is one of the line items, definitely.
So you'd answer your question here, it goes into the general fund.
Okay.
Why can't we allocate it for the dog pound?
That's, I think
It
she's
only
alluding
makes
to.
sense.
It's already broken
I
down.
mean, that's,
Because we wouldn't be in this situation
Right.
if
Well, I think that's what she's
we're
alluding to.
getting like $8,000 in to pay for a third of a fence or so.
Well, it should be for medical expenses especially, because that's when it's for spade and neuter.
True, but I mean, the fence, if you could fix the
Yeah.
fence, you could eliminate some medical expenses. I mean,
Nope, I understand.
There's other funds too, when we break it down. Things go to certain funds, historic preservation and this and that. We could break down and make a dog fund that automatically goes into as well.
Okay. Makes sense.
So the answer to your next question is probably not. It's not, it seems like we put the $8,000 in for the dog pound,
Mhm.
and the above expenses do not get included into that.
Okay. Then Kristen also enumerated the expense account, and, you know, I think it's beginning to take shape. At the January meeting, we didn't know where the utilities for the shelter were located, but now it's located in the dog pound supplies account, and also repair and maintenance supplies, pest control, and veterinary care. The special fund that was just alluded to, called Dog Pound Internal Fund number 808. Can anybody tell me what an internal fund is, since I don't see it in the budget proposal? And following on that is it earmarked for a particular purpose? And then following on that, I've been given to understand that the Belize donation was intended or understood to be for replacing interior and exterior fencing. Anybody know if that's correct?
I can't answer that. I'd be lying to you if I could right now.
Fair enough. And,
But that's something we can look into, Kristen.
And I referenced above that 1836.72 has been expended for routine laundry and veterinary care out of that fund. If it's earmarked for something, now we're taking operational expenses out of it. I just have a question about that. The spay-neuter fund, town manager and Ms. Benoit acknowledged that the town didn't have a spay-neuter fund, which is required by Rhode Island general law. But the good news is it's in place now in this licensing cycle, and I commend both of them for their swift action on that. This will generate a minimum of $1,170 for the fund. And in her detailed accounting, Ms. Benoit also highlighted certain fines. Some of these, such as for unspayed or unneutered cats, are to be directed to this fund as well. As a matter of fact, the Angels organization initiated a recent campaign to temporarily provide for the low-cost spay neuter to address the issues for cats, kittens, and pit bulls. The next thing is, it's my guesstimate that less than half of the dogs in town are being licensed annually. That's just a guess. I see a lot of them. And I'm wondering if anything is being done to remedy this. Certainly they're not all being licensed. Has a public notice gone out that this is the time to license dogs as is required by Rhode Island law and been posted?
Yes,
Was
all
that
reminders
basic?
have gone out, and we have an extensive information on the website as well, but all reminders did go out in early March.
So those reminders go out to existing license holders.
That,
Yes.
So what she's talking about is
People who don't.
people who don't have a
It goes in
license.
the newspaper 3 times,
okay.
and it's on the website.
I haven't seen it, but that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you. On the personnel supplement, page 36, a look back as far as the 2015-16 fiscal year indicates that a part-time animal control officer has been budgeted for each succeeding year, including going into 2018-19. It's my understanding that that position was filled in 2015 and 16, and perhaps a quarter of 2016 and 17, but it's remained unfilled since then. So the first question is, why does it continue to be budgeted? If the funds aren't expended, where do they go? Why has it remained unfilled when there's a full-time ACO that's been out on extended leave? How does one full-time ACO do the work of 2.5 that you budget for? And one that he didn't put in the pot for me tonight was, with 2.5 ACOs budgeted, why would there ever be a need for other personnel to go in and clean and feed at the shelter for $75 an hour?
Who's that at 70?
Pardon me?
When you say $75 an hour, who,
I think Angelo mentioned it, or, excuse me, Councilman Padula, at the last workshop, that was happening with police going in and doing that.
no, it's, what happens is, and I think we were misinformed. So what happens is, at that point, if somebody's away on vacation or out sick and they have to bring somebody in, it comes from a municipal union. So somebody from DPW or whatever, and they make an average of $20 an hour, and if they're doing it on overtime, that's an average of $30, $35 an hour, whatever it is. And if they're doing it on straight time, it's about 20, it ranges, depends who it is, it could be between $18 and $22 an hour, am I correct, Freddie? So, it's not $75 an hour, and that's just covering for vacation, sick time, or whatever else. It doesn't happen all the time.
But again, I wanna add to what I said
The
last
police
time.
department doesn't clean it.
They used to. What I wanna add,
The chief stood up here at the last meeting and said, the
chief
police
wasn't
department,
here.
the chief, during the last budget session when the chief was here, he said, we have never had police officers clean the dog pound at that hourly rate or at overtime or anything.
Thank you.
then the other question is then, if you have the Angels, why would we be paying if they're donating their time? That's another expense.
What if they're not there, Angela? What if they don't donate their time during the day when they gotta clean?
Well, for what I've been talking to, some of them said that they wanna donate their time, and they just can't get an answer when and if they can.
Well, the Angels aren't in there alone though at any point. They're in there with somebody else. Am I correct in that? Like the Angels come in, they don't open the shelter on their own. They help out the other people, correct? Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So we need an employee in there at all times, is what you're saying? And the volunteers come in to supplement,
During-
the aid the employee?
Correct.
All right.
I'm aware that there are a bunch of people behind me that probably want to talk, so I'll wrap this up as quick
Well,
as I can.
I think you're bringing up some good valid points.
At your January meeting, I cited executive responsibilities for an ACO outlined by town ordinances. And it has been said, more than once, that the two ACOs are equal, and so they are, but only in salaries. The question I have is, how then do you hold them accountable for the executive responsibilities outlined in the ordinances? I think that's something that needs to be cleared up.
Well, they actually, right now, they report to the police department, to one specific officer, and
Right.
that's basically
Is that,
how they're held accountable.
okay, does that officer execute the, I don't understand that. Who does the executive
Chief.
responsibilities of accounting for the financial records at the shelter, making the reports, that kind of thing?
So your question basically is who's watching over the hen
Who's
house?
managing
Yeah.
it?
So by when they take money in, each day they're supposed to bring the money in with the receipts. There's a 3-page receipt. They turn that over to the records clerk. She processes it, then it gets over to the town, whether it's finance, to go into the particular funds that they put the money in. So we have 2 ACOs. They have seniority by their hirees, but according to their contract, they're at the same level, so it's not one that is a supervisor, so to speak. They're the same pay, however, seniority has its privileges, if that helps.
Including, making state reports to the town about the number of animals that come in, and that's a privilege of seniority.
That's how we usually get it, yes.
Okay, well, I think you need some more privileges for
Yeah.
seniority.
Well, we've had that conversation, Councilman Licciardi has been making some recommendations, but and I know you mentioned on page 36,
Yep.
it has the part-time ACO.
Right.
In our numbers that we went through, the 264641, which is on page 22, the general wages, that only has 2 full-time ACOs. The part-time ACO was eliminated when we hired the second full-time ACO.
That's the page I'm talking about.
Yeah, I did not produce that page, I don't know why that was there, it may have been an oversight there, but I know that in the budget that the department, the manager and the finance director sat in, if you look on the general wages, which covers, right here, general wages covers all the staff civilian, excluding dispatchers, so that would be the animal control officers, the maintenance, the administrative assistants, records clerk. So that number counts 2 full-time ACOs. It does not have the part-time ACO salary. I'm sorry, I can't answer for that page.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think this is the last thing. I happened to pick up a copy of the capital budget at your first budget workshop, and the police department lists range animal shelter repairs of $30,000, and I've been given to understand that the ratio is 70,000 for the 70% for the animal shelter, which would be $21,000, and 30 for the range, which would be 9,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And are the repairs for the animal shelter enumerated? And I'm just going to repeat again, even if they're approved, if the budget's approved as is, repairs for the fencing can't wait till July 1st.
Well, Mrs. Young, I want to speak for Councilman Licciardi because he did send an email today, and he asked some questions, but really couldn't respond via email because we just don't want to have a rolling quorum. So I can respond here as far as a budget item. There's $15,000 remaining for, we have a public event that we had budgeted for last year, which we didn't go through with because of funding and sponsors and whatever else, and also timing, and Ann was involved with Rainey Kutu along with Councilman D'Amico. There was just too many things going on to get that event this year. So there's $15,000 remaining. Now, it's still sitting there, and the council has to discuss it during a council meeting, maybe possibly the next council meeting, which is the 3rd week of this month. Can we take that $15,000 out of this year's budget, use it towards the dog facility, the animal facility, and take the $15,000 out of this year's budget, so it's not affecting this year's, but we have it from last year's. So that's what we're talking about, and then that'll give us the ability to do it right away, instead of waiting till July 1.
The goal is to use it for fencing.
Pardon?
The goal is to utilize that money for fencing, to fix the immediate problem that's down there.
Of the money that's budgeted for
No.
To take the
No,
fif-
we want to take the
Take the 15,000.
That's what I'd like to do, is take the $15,000 out.
The sooner the better.
Well, we have to have, it has to go
We have
through
to,
a
we have
meeting.
to approve it through the council.
So,
At the 3rd,
at the next, in 2 weeks from
Sounds
today.
that's possible, it could happen. that
14th?
soon?
What week?
It's gonna be on the agenda.
Okay, sounds great to me.
3 weeks from today?
Yeah, our actual next council meeting is in the 4th week of April because of school vacation. We
Okay.
didn't have a council meeting during school vacation because, I don't know what, we don't really, we used to take off for vacations because our kids were younger, but now it's a little different. Now they take us away on vacation, hopefully.
Yeah, where?
I think I'm pretty well set, and I appreciate your responsiveness.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your thorough questions as well. Thank you, Mary.
And we as a council have some discussions that we can follow up with as far as budget. Now, again, there's money coming in as revenue, so we put it under the clerk or under where, basic revenue. It's just that we might need to create line items for those specific, instead of having the revenue go into the general fund, if the council decides or deems that they want those fines to self-maintain the animal shelter, then that's something we need to discuss. The money's in the budget somewhere, just we don't know what it's allocated. It doesn't get allocated to, I could say it's like the 911 fee. But thank you very much. Anybody else from the general public with concerns or discussion about the budget? Tony? Just state your name and address for the record.
Tony Duffy, 277 Scrimmage Ave.
Are you speaking as an employee or a resident?
Right, I guess an employee. A little of both.
You guess?
A little bit of both?
No, I couldn't make the first meeting.
Yeah.
Regarding the part-timers, I just wanted to say that we have 4 already. We already have 4 current part-timers. So, I heard the budget meeting as far as not gonna cut any funds, but you want to maybe add some part-timers. We currently have 4 now, seasonal part-timers, so
When do they normally stop?
depends when they go to college. June, May, and
How long do they go for, Tony?
big Labor Day. There's 4 of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ernie? Any changes to the budget or recommendations?
Not at this time. No, other than, as we said at previous few meetings, because of the revised information on motor vehicles, the increase to the levy has gone down from 3.94% to 3.5%. The tax rate, which was 3% on all the different classes, has gone down from 3.5% to 3%. So yes, it's heading in the right direction. But that's been the biggest change so far.
So one of the questions that was brought up to me through email or messenger or whatever it may have been was tangible taxes, tiered tax system as far as
Right.
multi-units to single-family home. Have we looked at how we want to adjust if there is a tax increase, if the budget's passed? Is there, a lot of times I know afterwards, the council would decide, and I know in a few years back, we raised 3-family up almost 25%. They actually got hit the hardest, if I remember correctly, Angela, was it about 3-4 years ago? And
Yeah, 4 years
have we
ago.
looked at adjusting where it wouldn't affect single family or businesses, or however, have we done formulas? We usually get formulas from the finance director on how to
Right.
adjust the budget and adjust tax increase or no tax increase.
Right, the budget that was prepared has a 3% increase in all the different classifications, but we do have a formula set where it's a formula where they can be adjusted, and the dollar amounts can be reflected on that. So we have the ability to adjust, whatever the rates would be, that would be, desired by the council, as long as it's within any type of guidelines that are out there. But for the budget proposal that we have, it's 3% for each class. But to answer your question, yes, it can be modified.
I mean, I think that's something that we would want to do and discuss if this is gonna be before the taxpayers and the voters, on what our plans are as a council. If there is a tax increase and it's voted, how we want to adjust those tax increases. If it's 3% across the board, then that's the way it should be told to the general public or the voters of West Warwick. But if there's gonna be a 5%, say on 6-family and above, and a 2% on single family, or whatever I'm just throwing numbers out there, because I don't have the formula in front of me. But is that an option that the council wants to look at?
I think
I
we
mean,
need to,
I don't wanna vote, I don't want it to go to the voters thinking that it's 3%, and the council later on decides, well, I wanna raise 6 family and above by 4.25, and take away a little bit of burden off the single family, or whatever it may be, because we've done that in the past where we've given a 1% on single family, and the 3 family got a 25%. Because of the percentage, the dollar amount that we're allowed to go to. And actually, 3 family was brought in line with 6 family, because 3 family was $10 less per thousand than the 6 family and above. And we brought the 3 family to the 6 family rate, which brought up about $10 per thousand. And they got hit really hard that year. So is that something the council is looking at?
Yeah, I don't wanna lose any options.
No, we have to think of all the options quickly. Because, I mean, right now, 3%, I mean, I can speak for, after the last meeting, I had people come up to me, a few people, and their question is, what am I going to do? I can't afford to live here anymore. You know, and I don't have an answer for that. You know, I don't think it's right. I think if we're going to make some cuts, I think next week's the last week to do it, correct?
Yes. Correct.
So, because I'll be honest,
I'm getting the same phone
I'm
calls
looking to make some cuts.
as Councilman Licciardi. They just can't afford it. They're strapped. The businesses, the homeowners, and if if we bring up the rental properties, the renters are gonna get hit. So either way, everybody's getting hit. And there's gotta be something that we can do, like you do your own budget at home. You don't spend more than what you're making. We don't have that caveat where we can, raise our income.
Well, we've cut about $50,000 out of the budget minus the car, the car, numbers brought us down 0.5%, which probably brings you about $500,000, 0.5%
Yeah, somewhere around there.
in there, just quick math. I mean, so you still got basically, if you want a 0% tax increase, you gotta figure out where to get $2 million out of this budget roughly.
The another question I want to bring up, but I'm only doing it in a public meeting because it was asked in a public meeting last time. I know Councilman Padula had asked for the HR director, I guess, daily duties in a list, and we were sent a job description, which, I mean, it's, I don't want to speak for Angelo, but I thought we were going to get something a little bit different.
What's done all day, what isn't done all day? Numerous things that I never received. And I specifically asked for certain, if they're abusing phones, if they're abusing the computers, playing games, talking on the phone, personal conversations 2-3 hours a day, coming and leaving as they please, taking time off when they're directed not to. I mean,
All I know is if my job was in question, because I guess it is, then I would have a list a mile long
So can I ask
instead of a job description.
can I ask a question to follow up on what you said? So, were you talking about eliminating that position? Is that something you're considering?
No, I'm asking because the question was
yeah, I'm
asked.
talking about eliminating
The
the
No,
position.
so that's
Okay.
fine. I'm just asking. So in that case, what would we do
Oh, that's-
for that position now if we did that?
I will say this, I was a proponent of HR, and I don't care what anybody says, this town hall needs an HR person. Whether it's that person or another person, whatever it may be, that position needs to be here.
I'm
You
not
need a lot of
questioning the
things, David,
person,
but you
Dave.
can't afford it. We're still
I'm not
looking for $6
questioning
million.
people. I'm looking at when I'm
Angelo,
looking
when
at.
you have- let me
hang
ask
on a
you
minute.
this.
When I'm looking at the budget,
Well-
I'm not looking at people.
No.
I'm not looking at union, non-union. I'm looking at. It used to be wants versus needs. Now I'm looking at more of needs versus necessity. Because just looking at the numbers and hearing a lot of different things, and we're still in financial crisis. And I hear it. I've talked to so many people in the last week. My head was spinning some of these days. And I feel for the union, especially the municipal union.
Yeah, they're
because
gonna get it again.
you live in town, you're going to get a whack in taxes. You don't get a raise. It's difficult. There's no easy fix. There isn't. And I don't think the 5 of us up here this year or the next 5 people in 4 years can fix this. It's just going to take baby steps.
We're not voting on the budget next week, correct?
No,
I'm not going to be here next Tuesday. I want to make sure we're not voting.
we're
on
not
this.
voting on the budget next week.
Okay.
And again, we're not voting on the budget up here. We're voting to
I
let the
understand.
taxpayer.
To
well,
clarify-
A lot of people don't understand
I
that.
understand.
They think they're voting on the budget up
clarify.
here.
We're
They're
not
voting on the
we're
budget.
not voting on for us to send the budget to the people next
No.
week. That's gonna happen after that, okay.
So, in my opinion, and I think I've spoken to every department head in here, that an HR person is needed in this town hall. I don't care what anybody says, I've been around long enough. The town manager cannot sit there and deal with employee matters every single day. Will just totally destroy everything we tried to build by eliminating that
So
position.
why is the town manager dealing with employee matters?
Well, if there's no HR director, who deals
So
with
why-
employee matters?
What type of employee matters every day?
There's a lot of
Oh.
employee
Like,
matters,
I-
injuries, workers' comp, TDI, LOA, leave of absence, whatever it may be. There's healthcare issues, there's health plan, you wanna come in, somebody wants to come in and talk. Then there's disciplinary issues where you need to bring them in and discuss that. Those are the things that HR deals with. And,
I would know that only because it wasn't given to us that way.
well, Jed, you
After
know
he
that 'cause
asked
you've worked in another community.
know,
that has
know.
an HR director. And you
Right.
do understand HR, you've been a department head.
I've,
So don't sit there and say you wouldn't know what
All
an
right.
HR person does.
hey,
I don't
all I'm
wanna-
saying,
I mean,
hey,
I'm not
listen,
gonna argue
my,
with you about
my
it,
job's
but-
on the line. You know, we asked the question, he asked the question, we didn't get an answer.
First of all,
That's it.
the answer is any kind of job, you have a job description, that gives the framework of the position. Every day can change, all right? There's basic functions, employee benefit administration, you have healthcare, you have dental, all the benefits go through that department. You have grievances, labor issues go through that department.
Hiring.
You know, the hiring of the department, the screening of the department, all that goes through that department. In fact, this week or next week, the HR director is going to be heavily involved in interviewing for police candidates. So that's going to be 20-plus interviews with candidates. And she was involved in over a weekend ago with the police department for the screening and testing of all the candidates. So again, that happens at once when you have class, but that's an example of the work that's done in that department. As was said, you have grievance administrations, you have special investigations that come up throughout the, come up in any type of organization that have to be dealt with. When we have the open enrollments for healthcare, that department does all that work. So when you think about any modern organization, what personnel benefits run through that, the workers' comp issues. If you have to send an employee through for a medical evaluation, independent medical evaluation, you have to do that. So there's a lot of employee benefit work that needs to be done. A lot of, in a union environment, there's all kinds of union-related issues, whether it be filling posting jobs. There's, you know, when someone's out, then a job is posted, and then there's a trickle effect. So you do one, but you can do more of that. So you have the complete gamut of benefit administration, hiring, selection, making recommendations for disciplinary actions to the manager. It is the functions that really any personnel department would have. Is it necessary in a town this size? Yes.
Previously, the
Well,
town manager.
I
handled-
just
I'm
wanna
I'm just curious
How do we do
before
it
that.
50 years in a
Wait,
row?
Thanks.
I will tell you, and that's what I was gonna bring up. All the years that I've been here, there's always been somebody in HR, but when that person was in the union, I never heard one person say, let's cut that position. Not one person.
Well, it wasn't really,
Okay.
HR was for,
That was HR, Angelo. It
Yeah.
was HR, and it was considered
All
HR,
right.
plain and simple.
Right.
Now, the other thing is, like I said, I don't care any which way, shape, or form, this town needs an HR person. Now, again, whether that person's that person or another person,
Oh.
it doesn't matter to me, okay? What I'm saying is that position is a viable position in this town hall.
No matter what size community you have to be responsive and be aware and follow every law, whether it be local, state, federal laws, whether it be City of Providence or here. You have to know those and follow the laws, and they are constantly changing.
So history lesson,
You know.
how long ago did we not have an HR director? Is that previous to Councilman Padula and Goslin? Is it before that or since? she's been
Director,
here?
no, we haven't had a director.
Never had
in-
one.
Well, we had one, Wolfgang Bauer cut it, he took on the roles. Wolfgang Bauer took on that role, and it was Monty Hall up there. And I don't care what anybody says, I know union presidents, I used to go up there and say, oh, let's take care of this guy, he's on a shoulder injury. It was Monty Hall, it was nothing done right.
There was no person in that position.
Everything's being done
during
perfect.
the town council,
Yeah.
but when the mayor was here, the mayoral form of government for 6 years, there was an administrative assistant that would handle some of those matters. They weren't given the name HR, but basically as an administrative assistant, they would assist the mayor in.
And there was a
dealing
clerk
with
in
those
that role.
things. Then after the mayoral form of government was gone, it came to a town manager. I believe at times, I believe Jim Thomas had, through a grant, he had hired a grant writer that was kind of running interference, but he didn't last too long. But there's always been someone assisting either the mayor or the town manager in the position. Not full-time sometimes, but.
And correct me if I'm wrong,
Thank
Ernie, in this year's budget, you took the clerk out of HR, now it's just one HR
Right.
person.
Right, and I did make some notes from the last meeting, since you brought them up. Again, works in a highly confidential environment, responsible for ensuring all the personnel compliance, as well as all federal, state, local laws, including federal regulation and labor laws. Have to know those, Family Medical Leave Act. Anything to do with that, you have to know those inside and out. Ensures compliance with all contractual requirements, including those contained in collective bargaining agreements. Assist in the handling and responses to employee grievances resulting from collective bargaining agreements. Makes recommendation on disciplinary action, reviews proposed disciplinary actions for compliance with collective bargaining agreements. Coordinates and administers vacancy postings. Responsible for the oversight of administration of the medical, dental, life insurance, disability, deferred compensation plans, flexible spending accounts, unemployment insurance, workers' comp, and leave of absences. Responsible for setting up independent medical evaluations when needed. Responsible for the recruitment process. And right now, as I said, HR director is involved with the police recruitment process, and there will be a fire one coming, I believe, in the summer as well. Again, with the recent test, proctored tests with the police candidates, part of the oral panel for those, and conducts workplace investigations as needed. So these are some things I jotted down today.
And Ernie, you just said the police recruitments were on a weekend, a Saturday?
For the testing, physical testing, and
And
written
the HR
test.
person was there.
Yes.
So, and again, that's something I want to point out. An HR person might walk in, any department head, they're all sitting here tonight. There's 4 or 5 back, 5, 6 back there. There's, up here, there's a few. If you're working weekends and nights and whatever else, and you're required to work 40 to 45 hours a week, and you're putting in 50, 55, and you're working weekends, I don't see a problem with the person walking in the door at 8 o'clock, 8:15 or 8:30 as a salary person. Yes, I believe if you're gonna sit there and work 40 hours and,
Listen, that's part of the job description.
but
If
Angelo.
they gotta
it's-
come in, if the chief's gotta come in on a Saturday or Sunday, he
and
don't get a
Angelo,
Monday or Tuesday
when,
off.
when the director was down.
Listen,
the-
I'm not gonna
Wait a minute,
argue.
wait a minute, can I
You
ask a
guys
question?
got your
I
mind
wanna
set
ask you a
up.
question.
You don't have to ask me a question, ask the
When we
manager.
had a director down at the sewer plant that came in for emergencies, you sat here and said, that person works weekends, and if they get called in for an emergency, you don't mind them taking 2 hours here, 2 hours there, correct?
We put them, instead of having, we eliminated overtime over there
I'm talking
and let
about the
them
director.
come in.
I'm talking about the director.
No,
When Janine was down there, she used to be salary. You came up here numerous times, when she came up here and said, I dealt
we
with.
weren't $6 million in a hole, my friend.
Angelo, but again, she's a department head, and
Yeah,
Ernie
well.
comes in on
Then
Saturdays and Sundays.
Why
if he
can't one
leaves
of
an
the
hour, I'm not
municipal?
gonna-
Some of them go above and beyond. Why can't they get
They're
time
getting
off?
paid hourly. It's different.
How many times do they do something where they don't get paid? Do you know all them times?
How many times
I
they do
do.
stuff?
They're not making $100,000 a
I'm
year
not.
either. Bullshit.
Ernie, thank you for that.
You know,
I
can
just
till the
thought
cows come home.
I thought we were gonna get that, instead of, I felt we got a little bit brushed off. I thought we were gonna get that answer last week.
So I didn't get a clear answer before we had an official HR director. Who handled that? You said it wasn't the town manager, so what was the
Jim
position?
Thomas handled it.
Sometimes the town manager handled, like I said, he went out on his own and hired I think it was, he came to the grant writer. And all of Luke, right, and all of a sudden, Luke was doing stuff
So
that.
it was a similar position, but it was obviously a less expensive.
There was
It
still a
wasn't
clerk in
similar. It
place.
wasn't similar.
Ladies and gentlemen, there was
No, I'm
still a-
asking, no, that's why I'm
But-
clarifying, that's why I'm trying to get
You're
clarification.
clarifying, okay?
I'm
but-
trying to get clarification, I
But
don't know.
again, I just want to point out something. there was always a clerk, no matter who was there, whether it was Wolfgang Bauer, Jim Thomas, there was always a clerk, there was always a full-time employee doing the job. Whether it was.
Doing the HR job.
Diane Cabral,
Thank you.
there for a while.
Doing an HR type job, but not.
And
not
Jim
100
Thomas had to lay off his secretary because there wasn't 35 hours worth of work that the
but not
secretary was
100,000
doing during the
but
week.
not $100,000 a year.
Am I right or
That's what I'm
wrong?
Trying to clarify.
I remember Diane Cabral handled a lot of it for a while.
Any other comment? Any public comment? Hearing none? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. See you in 12 minutes.